All right. We've reached noon, so we are going to get started. I'm sure folks will be joining us as we go. So just, pay attention to that. Make sure we're having smiling faces if your camera is on. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Braden Ransom with Mental Health Connecticut. I'm going to ask that everyone just mute your mic to start while we intro our speakers today. And throughout the workshop, if you want to unmute and ask questions, there'll be opportunities to participate and share your work. So please feel free to unmute, turn your camera on when the time calls for it if you don't want it on the whole time, and interact with us because we're here to see what you create. So MHC is thrilled to partner with Yoga in Our City to present A Place of Peace. It's our virtual workshop today. Joining me today are our hosts, Amy Smith and Elise Cusimano. Amy is an artist and program coordinator for Mental Health Connecticut's wellness programs and creator of MHC's Mending Art program, which explores the avenues of creativity and wellness. Elise is an experienced lifestyle and meditation coach, and she's going to share insights on the value of incorporating creativity in our daily lives. After the workshop is over, we'll be in touch with everyone who registered via the email you used to register, and we'll share ways to stay connected to both Yoga in Our City and Mental Health Connecticut. You could sign up for our newsletter, and we'll also share some general resources that are open to the public. So with that, I am going to pass everything off to Elise. Take it away.
Thank you, Braden. So excited to dive in and collaborate. Not too often that we get a chance to collaborate on some of these things like self-care and creativity out in the world. So very excited to be here and to do just that with all of you. And we'll touch on a few things that might seem more of a luxury at first glance, but with a deeper dive, hopefully will prove just the opposite. So there is such a natural tie between self-care, creativity, and even peace. Amy's going to touch on the latter, and we'll dive into self-care and creativity. That's what today is all about. So let's look at the crossover through maybe a little bit more of a unique lens. We talk a lot about self-care at Yoga in Our City, and I know that Mental Health Connecticut does too. So when we think about how these two concepts go together, the fact of the matter is taking good care of ourselves requires just that we be creative every day, every moment, whether it's obvious or not, whether it fits the mainstream definition of what it is or how it looks. What supports you today might have not resonated with you yesterday. And you might be better served by doing something today different than yesterday that worked well then, right? So every time we go and look to support and bolster ourselves, it can be very different, but be helping in the same sense, in the same way. And that's where we need to get a little creative with things. So maybe you've heard the saying that change is the only constant. And can it ring true, not just for the world that we're a part of, but our own bodies, our own minds? And if everything continues to change, our needs are going to change too, right? Not just from day to day, but I'm talking about the minute to minute support that we need to call on to boost our well-being from each and every side of us. You could tell me a definition of creativity. I could tell you another. We could both very well disagree on that definition, but be channeling creativity at the same time in our own ways, which I think is probably the most important, maybe the most important, but definitely the most interesting thing about it, at least to me. And the best thing is that you don't have to remember to put creativity in your pocket when you leave home, right? It's always there. It's always ready to call on. And in fact, some of our most powerful and accessible self-care tools are actually this way. In yoga and in the language of Sanskrit, we call this collective creative life force prana. And maybe you're familiar with that term, but every culture and every language has its own word to describe this fountain of creativity, more or less, that's flowing inside of us. So a river is apt for this imagery of a river flowing inside. And that's how I heard it described one time. It always resonated with me. So I thought I'd share it with you. If creativity is like a river flowing on the inside landscape of our lives, never stops, never runs dry, But perhaps every now and then there's a blockage. And all we need to do is remove the barrier and then step out of its way and let it flow and let it do what it does best, which I think is such a curious visualization. So I share it and hope that maybe it'll resonate with you too. And in the spirit of being curious, I would love to know what you associate with self-care or creativity. And maybe it's similar when you think of both of those words, and maybe it's completely different. But tell us what comes to mind. You can pop it in the chat. You can come off mute. Think on this for a few seconds, but don't think too hard. If you feel inspired with whatever's bubbling up to the surface for you, pop it in the chat. Frankie, go ahead and come off mute.
Self-care, I don't really have a good definition there, but creativity is just doing, in my opinion, is doing something maybe normal in a different way. I taught school for years, and so I could stand there and tell them what a verb is, but if I would act it out, or I would, ask them to get up and do something, because finding verbs was difficult a lot of times. And so they would say window was a verb. And I say, okay, get up and window for me. Can you window? You can't window. Window's not a verb. So just taking something and making it a little different is to me what creativity is.
Wonderful. I see how you channel that and the way that you brought creativity to life with them. That's lovely. Thanks, Frankie.
Thank you.
I see a few things in the chat here too. Maddie says making time to draw, sing, play music. Bethany says doing pottery, sewing, or running. Yeah. Playing the clarinet, Cindy said. There's so many different ways to do it. I see a lot of fine arts coming up too, and we'll chat about it. But go ahead and continue as things bubble up to the surface. Go ahead and keep putting them into the chat, and I'll just reflect a little bit. Over the years as a health and lifestyle coach, I'll share some common associations that I've heard, and maybe these are some of yours too. There's notions that self-care has to be expensive if it's done well, or it's something we have to go out and buy at the very least. And that self-care is synonymous with spas and services, or if nothing else requires a heck of a lot of time, right? Thankfully, these are not requirements for good self-care, and it can be just the opposite. And we'll talk on that here in a moment. Creativity associations often look a similar way. Again, I see ties to consumerism a lot. In order to be creative, you got to go out and buy the things, right? And can it be true sometimes that a tool we go out and buy might help us channel this creativity? Sure, but definitely not required. So when you think creativity, maybe you think painting, drawing, music, the fine arts. I saw a little bit of that in the chat too. And if you do, you wouldn't be alone. Such beautiful ways to channel creativity. And we're going to be dabbling in a little bit of that today as well, but not the only way. One of my favorite books on this topic of what I like to call out-of-the-box creativity is by Rick Rubin on The Creative Act, A Way of Being. That's the name of the book. And there's a quote from the book that says, no matter what tools you use to create, the true instrument is you. The true instrument is you. And I hope that helps to open up this concept a little. Creativity can be the idea that you offered in support to a friend who's walking through maybe a tough time. Creativity is the moment that you see a bud sprouting this spring and the way that it resonates with you, right? We're already here in bloom in Connecticut. Creativity is the decision to do something for yourself that maybe you don't usually do as a caregiver, perhaps. That's the beauty of it. In fact, in just a few minutes, we're going to see from Amy that you can use what you have within you and around you. It's as accessible as that, and you'll get to be the instrument. The kind of creativity that we're talking about isn't about having oodles of space necessarily, but knowing how to use a small space of time wisely. It's less about having lots of money and more about knowing how to use $1 wisely, right? So if you're catching my drift, it's not so much the tool that you hold, but knowing how to hold it and how to use it to support you in any given moment. So instead of asking what it takes to be creative, because it's less about talent, I'd like to ask what helps cultivate creative self-care? What helps make it possible? Think on that for a moment. And if you feel inspired to share, please do. But just something to reflect on. And in my own walk of life, I've noticed three big things that tend to help. And I've listed them here: a little space, a little ease, and an open mindset. So take whatever space you have to work with. Maybe it's a space of 3 minutes, or clear a small radius of physical space around you, right? Space is open to interpretation here. Create a little room to breathe, so to speak. And then today we'll have plenty more time, more than 3 minutes for our project with Amy. And then, just like creating any habit, make whatever you've chosen as easy as possible to be a part of. The less resistance there is, the fewer obstacles that you'll have to hurdle over in the process, right? The better. That can look like forming a rhythm around it. Maybe you tie it into another routine that you have to make it easy to remember to do. And then I couldn't forget mindset either. It's all about attitude. Come with a good dose of curiosity, as you might with anything new. The reason behind this is that as expectation falls away, it makes room for wonder to seep in, right? Just like a kid maybe seeing something new for the first time, it really captivates their attention and they immerse themselves in it. And I think we could learn a thing or two from the little ones when it comes to creativity. They're such natural and open channels. So take what resonates here. These are not the best 3 ingredients, but take what resonates, leave the rest. Odds are you will find an even more essential ingredient for you as you try it on, and that's even better than what I would have here to offer you. So, and for what? Why all this talk on creativity? Why try to be creative in self-care anyway? Why dare to be creative? And if nothing else, is it a moment to play? Is it a moment of self-compassion, right? Most of us are better at giving that to others than we are giving it to ourselves. So we can sneak it in with a creative moment, so to speak. And some days that might look like carving out time. Other days, creativity bursts from the seams or arises naturally, and both are equally as wonderful. Other days, you might not feel creative at all, and that's okay too. Remember that it's not always about doing. Creativity is just as much about being and allowing. So, as I've alluded to, we're going to get a chance to explore what can come from a dedicated 45-minute space of channeling creativity through drawing. I hope you'll be curious. I hope you'll take some time out just for you, enjoy the process, and you're going to be in excellent hands with Amy. Go ahead, Amy, take it away.
Hello, everybody. I just want to take a moment and thank you so much, Elise. That was absolutely beautiful, and I'm so inspired by how you've presented what creative energy is like, that flow, right? Just let it flow. I'm so happy to be here today with all of you. I want to start with a quote, one of my favorite quotes. Peace. It does not mean to be in a place where there is no noise, trouble, or hard work. It means to be in the midst of those things and still be calm in your heart. I'm sharing this quote with you today because we're going to explore our ideas around what our place of peace is together. So I hope you've all brought some drawing materials. I want you to use whatever you're most comfortable with today. I almost always have my colored pencils on hand. I almost always have my paint markers, a pen, a pencil. You may have charcoal or pastels, whatever you're comfortable with today. And I've also brought my sketchbook. I carry my sketchbook everywhere. I have a lot of these, and I find this to be where my ideas come through, where I can just let my creative energy flow. And it's a practice that I use daily. Does anybody here use a sketchbook like on a regular basis? Yes, I see some heads nodding. Yes. I had one participant say to me once that a sketchbook was like a place of memories. And every time I go back and open up a sketchbook, I'm fascinated by it. I'm fascinated by how ideas came through. I'm fascinated by the progression and seeing how things I've learned, things I've experienced, places I've been, I can take a quick look and feel all those places again. So I really like that expression that it's like a place of memories and just letting those ideas kind of unfold on those pages. A sketchbook is a place that, you know, if you want to share with others, you can. If you just want it for yourself, you can. If you want to jot down quotes or lyrics or numbers or reminders, you can jot those down on the corner of your pages. However you want to use your sketchbook is completely up to you. You are free to express yourself on those pages. Is there anybody here today who brought something for this workshop that is different from a sketchbook or colored pencils or anything like that?
I have a dry erase board. Will that work, Amy?
That will
Yeah.
absolutely work, yes. Oh, I think you're on mute.
Well, I do have one piece of paper from a sketchbook, but I use my sketchbook kind of as a calendar for the different classes that I have. And I always have this beside me in case I want to jot down anything down. Yeah. And I have just purchased, just for myself, these markers that are so neat because one end is fine and point and the other is not. So
I'm right there with you. I
Like that.
love the two different points, the fine point, and these are new for me. So I'm so excited that you're using them too today. Is there anybody else who would like to share what you've brought to work with today? No? Okay. All right, so sometimes an empty canvas can be very intimidating. We've all been there. We stare at this blank space and think, how do I begin? What is it that I want to say? What part of the canvas am I going to begin on? And when I say canvas, I use that very loosely. That could be any, it could be literally a canvas to paint on, a sketchbook page. It could be anything. But I don't want you to feel intimidated by that canvas because the easiest way to get that creative energy moving and flowing is to begin. That's it. Have your materials out and ready, and we're just going to begin. And so I'm going to ask that you each, in the center of your page, just start with a rectangle, a large rectangle. You want to leave room in the middle. It can be a very free-flowing rectangle. It does not have to be completely geometric, but just a large enough rectangle so you have some space in the center. I'm gonna give everyone a second to do that. All right. So on the outside of your rectangle, you're going to start by making circles. We're almost making a frame, right? We're just going to start with some circles. You can make big circles, you can make small circles, you can do circles inside of circles, circles connecting to circles. We're just going to start with drawing some circles around your rectangle. All right, we're just going to take a few minutes, get that creative energy moving, flowing, just connect to that page, connect to that canvas, and go with it. Go with the flow of your circles. So while you do that, I want to share a little bit with you about MHC. I've worked with MHC for a while now, and I am thrilled to see how much MHC values the creative process and how we see the benefits of utilizing creative outlets for well-being. We have incredible programs throughout the state. We have visual art programs, we have music programs, we do a write-on program. We work with the Justice Dance Performance Project on our Moving Stories program. And I'm sharing this because there are so many ways to help move creative energy out. We all have creative energy inside, and sometimes, you know, we need those outlets to help us move it forward. I'm also excited to share with you, we have a new studio space in Hartford in partnership with the Hispanic Health Council. There's the Family Wellness Center. So that's a new studio space. It's open to the public. So if you ever need some more time to come on down to a studio and get your creative ideas moving, this is a great place to do that. So how are the frames coming along? How are your circles coming? Everyone got some circles moving on that page? Great. I'll give you another few minutes to get that creative energy moving, flowing, connecting with your page. And while you're doing that, I want to start thinking about our ideas, our unique ideas around a place of peace. We all find peace in different ways, in different places, in different activities. I was thinking earlier today what colors feel very peaceful to me, and immediately I think of like yellow, sunshine, joy. It's very calming but joyful color for me. Blue always reminds me of the ocean and the sky, and it's another very calming color. Actually, I think it's considered one of the most popular colors people connect with. Are there any other colors that you feel peace with?
I find green to be a very peaceful color. It reminds me of being outside and nature.
I agree.
We have a few colors here in the room. Go ahead, guys. Say a color that you said.
Light blue.
Light blue.
There you go.
Yes, what things are light blue? What are some light blue things?
Violet. He said also the color violet.
Ooh, yes.
And green.
And green?
Yeah.
Green.
Yes.
I like to make the colors. So I combine the yellow and the blue, and red and the blue. But white is also a very important color to add highlight and lighten up the colors. So, and black.
Oh,
Thanks, Phil.
wonderful. That's wonderful. Yes, mixing our colors it's very refreshing to have that control too over getting the exact color that we want. I'm glad you're exploring those colors. What kind of activities do you do that feel peaceful? I can tell you that I find that there's so many places and things that I can do that I know are going to help me feel peaceful. Um, and I don't do them enough. I need to go back and sometimes remind myself that these are things that make me feel more relaxed, make me feel more centered. Sometimes just take my dog for a walk. I can feel peace. Or when I'm in the kitchen and I'm cooking and um, it just brings out this very comfortable space, um, preparing food for myself and for others. Making a cup of tea always brings me peace. I make sure I do that on a daily basis. Sometimes just thinking about water, floating can feel very peaceful, relaxing. Just kind of letting your day drift away and just float away with that peaceful feeling. Listening to birds singing. When you just kind of pause and breathe and take that time to have your eyes open and your ears open and be can feel very peaceful. What does peace feel like for you? Anybody want to share? What is peace?
Happiness.
We said, Mark said happiness.
Yes, happiness. I feel peaceful when I'm happy too. And what are some things that bring happiness? I know that after I spend time with family or friends, I feel happy and I do feel peace. I know when I read a good book, I will feel happy and more at peace. And I think some with reading, um, it's about focus. I'm present, and when I'm present, I feel more peace. So we're exploring some of our ideas around those places and activities and colors and things that we relate to peace. So in the center of our rectangle, the center, we're going to start sharing some of our visual work around that place of peace for ourselves. And I left the center open also to remind us that creativity comes from our center. And once we let that flow, we bring it out in action, right? We bring out that creative energy in action and we can feel more peaceful. So we're going to take a little bit of time and work on our visual drawing around that place of peace, our unique place of peace. I'm going to give you a little bit of time there. Just let the ideas flow. There's no wrong way to do this. Pick a color you like, pick any area of that rectangle you want to begin, and just start letting those lines move. You know, some people say that they lose their self in art. And each time I hear that, I think to myself, I think I find myself in art more than I lose myself in art. The studio can be like a very powerful place to practice with reconnecting with yourself. And when I say studio, I also use that term very loosely. Your studio environment can be in many different places. It could be indoors, it can be outdoors. You create that studio environment for yourself. And I think the important thing is too, that you are allowing yourself that time to create and let those ideas flow. Oftentimes we get busy and don't allow ourselves that creative time, but you are deserving of it. And I hope you will allow yourself time for your creative energy to come through. And as Elise was saying earlier too, it may not necessarily be through the drawing practice, but it goes way beyond the canvas. And the more you go to the canvas, the more comfortable you can become too when you step out into anything that you're doing. I've heard a lot of people talk about how they feel after they've come into the studio. And while they're in the studio, they've shared that they feel less anxious, they feel less stressed, they feel more focused. And when they're leaving the studio, they feel that they have new ideas, they feel accomplished, they feel more confident. So the studio is a great place to connect with yourself, to see yourself, through your work, and then be able to take steps outward and continue with those that creative journey. So the Art of Well-Being program is about connecting with ourselves through that creative process, and then connecting with others through art. And I know some of you are still working on your pieces. Everybody that I can see on camera is looking down. So I think everyone's working on their pieces. And I want to give everybody a little bit of quiet time to just explore that idea, let it come through. Why don't we take a few more minutes, and then we can do a little bit of sharing. Does anybody have any questions for me while you're working?
Amy, you mentioned using your sketchbook, and a couple people here said that they also use one. Do you have any tips or advice or words of wisdom for if you want to start incorporating that as a self-care routine and, remember to use your sketchbook every day?
Absolutely. Thank you. I strongly recommend letting your creative ideas move in a comfortable space. A sketchbook is a beautiful safe space to just move those ideas, kind of like a journal. Does anybody here work on journaling? Yes, good. That you can just let all of your ideas come through in a sketchbook. It does not have to be a piece that you're going to go hang in a museum. It's just a space to let your ideas move. I recommend always having one nearby. I personally always have one in my car. I have one in my living room. I have one in my studio. I have one by my desk. And I would recommend just getting comfortable having it near you. And as ideas come, just put them out. Just keep moving the ideas. The more you move ideas out, the more ideas you're going to have. So definitely allow yourself that time to explore, even if it's just a few minutes a day. After you've done a few minutes, you may find out that you're going to do a half an hour the next day or an hour another day on a piece. But it's your space. It's like your journal to let your ideas flow. Thank you for that question. Does anyone else have any techniques that they might recommend for their sketchbooks?
I've taken some tangling courses, which is fun because you don't have to know how to draw. And that's why I'm laughing at this. This is pitiful looking. Gracious.
Oh, the drawing you're working on?
Oh, yeah, yeah. I'd much rather be tangling because tangling, just have you ever done that? I'm assuming you have.
I'm familiar with it.
Yeah.
I can share a little story. Last couple times I was in the studio, I was letting my ideas move. I was working with oil pastels one of those days, and pastels are not a medium that I work with a lot, um, but I am used to them. I have worked with them, but my ideas don't always flow as smoothly with them. So I did what I always suggest: just begin, right? Just begin and see where it guides you. And I will say that it took me a good 15, 20 minutes before all of the sudden it was just the hook, the creative hook just got me. And I started getting into the flow with the medium. Um, I did not like the piece initially because I was feeling uncomfortable with it. But the more time I spent with it, the more I started to understand the piece and the more comfortable I became with the piece. And I ultimately really liked the piece, but it took a while. And so I do recommend when you're feeling that way about a piece, keep going, just keep going with it, um, and see if all of a sudden it surprises you, which they often do. Um, or sometimes we put it away for a while and we may look back at it in, a month or a year and say, wow, I understand that piece now better. I understand why I needed to create it. And you might see beauty in it differently. Right. Just going to give it another minute and you can let me know. Are there any more questions before we start sharing?
We have one question. Mark wants to know if you paint more or draw more.
It's an excellent question. I always draw. I'm always drawing. And sometimes my drawings and ideas that may be in a sketchbook will lead me to a painting, will inspire, even a series of paintings. What I like about drawing is that it's very easy for me to be anywhere, go anywhere, be doing anything, and be able to quickly grab drawing materials. And so I probably draw a little bit more than I paint, but I love to paint. I'm always happy when I have that time and space to paint. What about you? Do you prefer drawing or painting, or do you um, do one more than the other?
I do more painting than drawing, because this is all new to me, and I couldn't even draw a stick figure. My teacher taught me a lot, so I feel better with the paint than drawing.
Good, good. Stick figures, I think can be very cool. I think stick figures can sometimes lead you in other directions, but once you start the stick figure and you keep going with it, you may also find some new ways of drawing than you maybe initially thought the direction of it was going to go. But I'm glad to hear you're painting. And do you draw on your canvas before you paint, or do you just dive right into the painting?
I usually dive right into the painting.
That's fun. Wow. Right. So we have a big group, so I want to make sure that we're getting some time to do some sharing. I want to hear your stories, your ideas. Um, I kept developing some of my circle frames, and I know this one in the center of it for my place of peace. I'm actually going to do some writing on this one, so I've held off on this one today, but I'm going to write the studio right in the middle of this one. I think being with you all today has reminded me that that is a place that I feel a great deal of peace. And so this piece will later have the studio in the middle, and it will remind me of this space and time together today. I've done many other places of peace with this style, this approach, and I found that most of them end up being about nature, because it is in nature that I feel my most centered. And I love the night sky, the moon. I love being by a body of water. Um, the water is very calming. Somebody was telling me just yesterday that we had some snow. I woke up to snow here today, and uh, they watched the storm come through with the snow hitting the water, and they were talking about the sound that the snow hitting the water makes. And I was visualizing that and as being very peaceful and very connected. So I definitely recognize that nature is a place I find peace, and I make sure that on a daily basis, I make time to be outdoors and breathe the fresh air. And like I said, listen to the birds, take my dog for a walk. I see people outdoors, so I can always start a conversation with people, with others when I'm outside. Or sometimes I just go for a walk around the pond, around the lake, and just let that cool breeze come by. And I feel a lot of appreciation for those times and places and spaces. So that is definitely my place of peace. Is there anybody else who would like to share with us what you've been working on, um, or your ideas around peace?
I can share mine. Mine was also nature, so I don't know if my screen is gonna let me, but
Can you hold it
kind
back
of.
just a little bit?
I think my background might be blurry. Let me see. There we go.
There we go.
That's good.
So my place of peace is definitely nature. I love like being in in the woods, being in the mountains. I also like water, so I tried to put that in here. And then I love animals too, so I tried to do that, but birds were really hard to draw, so I just have some little squiggles. But that's definitely where I feel the most peace is in nature as well.
Mhm.
Can you hold that back up again for a second?
Yeah,
Beautiful. I would like to say that using the dry erase board was also very creative today. I
thank
like that you used that, and um, I will never go to my dry erase board the same way again. I think
you.
I have to do some more drawing on it. Uh, I really like how your frame, your circles, changed as you worked around it. And I'm curious, did you start with the smaller circles or did you start with the longer circles?
I started with the smaller and I wanted to change them anyway, but then it was also time. I was like, oh, this is gonna take a really long time. So I went with the squiggles or with the longer ovals.
Mhm.
Yeah, and sometimes it is about time, right? When the
Yeah.
time to change has come, you have to keep moving and adjust. And I really like how you did that. Um, is there a place, a specific place that you like to be, like by the mountains? And
I love the White Mountains in New Hampshire. Anywhere in the White Mountains, I'm happy.
Thank you so much, Bethany. It's a beautiful
Mhm.
piece.
I was going to say I can talk. My picture is so pitiful, but I have a place that I like to go. The beach, of course, is my favorite. But down here in Myrtle, I live in South Carolina, so in Myrtle Beach, in the summer, it's too touristy to go to the beach. So I like to go to the beach in the wintertime, and it's just very peaceful during that time. But I have a local place, a marina for one of the big rivers that I love to go. And they have these big swings, and you can just sit in the swing facing the river and watch things go by, throw a leaf and watch it float by. And that is where I have told the children that I want to be cremated when I die, and I want my ashes to be scattered in the Waccamaw River because it eventually empties into the Atlantic Ocean. So I'll be fish food.
And thank you so much for sharing that. Is the weather there still winter, or is it spring-like now?
It's beautiful. I've got my sliding glass doors open and everything. Yeah. When you said snow, I was like, oh, you poor baby.
Just a little bit, but
Yeah.
and your drawing, did you work with the markers, the paint markers?
Mhm. Okay. You see how bad it is.
Oh, I love it.
I cannot draw. So, I mean, look at those beautiful trees. And she had such beautiful trees. This is the swing that I tried to get facing the river. And this is a little water fountain that they have there that people throw pennies into. I don't know if you can see the pennies.
I can see it, like a wishing well, kind of.
Well, it's just it's just a little bit of a spray up, and every time I'd take my granddaughter, she would want a penny, and it's built up, which I don't know how to do that, and she would stand up on top and beg for pennies, and she'd throw pennies, yeah, and make wishes. So
Wonderful. And everything you just drew, I recognized. The swing, I applaud. I would not attempt to draw a swing right now. I think I recognized it right away. I recognized it looking out to the water. I recognized and felt the trees, the way you kind of lined them all up, layered it all out. The way your process was moving through there, I think is beautiful. And that you were able to identify the space and visually put it on the paper. You definitely achieved that. So I hope you see the beauty in the piece that you have created and the story you just shared with us through it.
I'm
I
going to show this to my granddaughter today. I pick her up from school, and I'm going to see if she knows where this is or what this is. That'll be a
I
treat.
bet she does. I definitely feel like she's going to. Thank you so much for sharing that. And like I said, I'm glad that you're exploring these markers.
Yeah, I like these.
We'll have to keep using them and see where they take us.
Right.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to share?
I'm happy to share mine. I did not go with one thing because I am a bad decision maker. Let me see if I can get it in frame. There we go. So I included nature, if I can point to the right side. So I have a tree. I tried to sketch out my family. Amy, you brought up stick figures earlier. That's what I went with. So hopefully they're not offended by their lack of faces. I wanted to keep it so you could look at it from any side. So I put this little frog over here.
Oh, I'm losing the frog a little bit. I think because
maybe I shut off my virtual background for this moment. Okay, this is the little frog. Yeah, if you turn it around, I have some rollerblades going on. I tried to draw the road, have some bare feet. I like to walk bare feet, music. And if you look really closely, I tried to draw in pencil some squiggly lines connecting everything to keep it all in the frame of connectivity and this is all one thing, but I don't really have one specific place that I go to for peace. I have kind of different activities and people that bring me peace. And so that's what I chose to sketch out. So I can take this with me anywhere and everywhere. And I did try to incorporate some MHC colors on the outside. I put some orange and green and blue dots because this is a peaceful place and we are on the Place of Peace workshop. So in this particular moment and doing this, I felt peaceful. So I tried to represent that.
Wonderful. Thank you, Braden. And I didn't know that you did rollerblading.
I am a new rollerblader, so I'm still getting into it.
That's wonderful. I haven't tried that in a long time, and I probably won't anytime soon, but I'm so excited to know that about you now through your work. And, you know, the stick figures, again, you wanted to represent people, you know, people that bring you peace. And through the stick figures, you did that. You were able to get that across. So you moved that creative energy out. I am fascinated about all the trees that I am seeing. I find that our, you know, art is our organic creative nature. We are creatives. And so when I see the tree, I just kept seeing the roots of who we really are in that creative energy. So I'm so happy to see all those today. Thank you so much. I'm gonna be asking more questions with you about that frog.
Yes,
too.
you might see him on some community canvases around. That's my
Good.
typical doodle as the little frog guy.
Good. I'm happy to hear that. Wonderful. Is there anybody else who would like to share?
We have Grace would like to share her drawing. Here goes. Hold it. I don't know if it's could see it. Let me hold it up closer. You want to talk about it, Grace? So it looks like, is it the brain? It's a picture of the brain. And there's some flowers on one side. And then she has circles all around the frame. And it's all in pencil. I think it's
That
hard.
is fascinating. You know, we do talk about a place of peace for our mind to be in that peaceful place. That's a fantastic idea that you've had in your presenting and your drawing. Can you tell me a little bit about the flowers with the brain? What inspired the flowers with the brain?
Stroke. Say a little louder. Stroke. Her stroke.
Thank you for sharing that with us. Really, I appreciate it, and it's a very powerful piece. All right, is there anybody else who'd like to share?
I'll share mine. I also did a nature scene, and it's kind of wild because I use highlighters. But I'm still going.
That's wonderful. Is that like a, can you hold it up again? Like walking out into the spiral?
Yeah, I wanted to do
A path
like
to the sun?
boardwalk type of sunset boardwalk thing.
Wonderful. And is that a place that you have been, or is it a place that you are creating?
I guess I was thinking about Silver Sands and White Memorial.
White
Both
Memorial.
of them, yes.
Wonderful. I'm so happy you used highlighters. Sometimes when we're just grabbing what we have
Yeah.
around, I have also grabbed some highlighters, and they really do highlight things. They bring things with this colorful, fun energy, and that is coming through in your piece, especially because the center of it is that like sun. I go right into it, into the spiral. It's beautiful. Thank you so
Thank you.
much for sharing, Maddie. All right, well, I know some of you are probably still working on your pieces, and I don't want to stop you. So feel free to continue creating your piece. I hope today, this process, you felt some peace. I hope when you look back at this piece later on, whether it be next week, next year, 10 years from now, tonight, when you look back at it, that you remember that when you go to these creative outlets, that they will help you find some peace. And I want to thank you all so much for joining us today. And you have all inspired me so much. And I hope you really will keep creating. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. I just want to let folks know that we will be following up via email, whatever email you registered with. And I know some folks registered under one email, just so you guys know, Rebecca, we're covered on that. We'll get you all the info you need to all the folks. We will be sharing a copy of this video, so you're able to redo this practice on your own time if you'd like. We'll also share some information about Mental Health Connecticut and Yoga in Our City, ways to stay contacted with both of us. We're going to have future workshop offerings similar to this, free and open to the public. So we hope that you'll sign up for our newsletters and follow us on social media and stay connected that way. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your day and that this was a moment of peace for everyone. I'm going to stop recording and thank you all for taking the time to be with us.